Hello, listeners. Once you're done catching up with everything Intrepid Audio Productions has to offer, check out some other great independent podcast shows like the Knights of the Video Game Table podcast. Jeremy, Patrick, and Frank do great work, and it's worth your time to check them out. They're part of the Nerdgasm Network, where you can find other cool shows, including the Super Budget Brothers, the Nerdgasm Network video game podcast, and all other shows, which can be found at extraplay.info. Give them a listen, because good, honest work can be hard to find.
The best. Or worst food. What I ate. Check it out at the best or worst food, what I ate.blogspot.com.
Hi, this is Ben Lloyd Holmes from the film The Expedition, which is currently fundraising on Indiegogo.com. You can find out more about us and our film on Twitter at Expedition Movie. You are now listening to LagFree by Matt Cain.
Marl fiber. I invented marl fiber.
And here we...
Subject started acting way creepier than normal. Like, even for strong side.
Marzipan. What do you want to make? You want to make some wood davers with me? I got pine cones, I got peanut butter, I got everything we need. I said pine cones. Gonna be successful. Gonna be phenomenally successful. Sell them at the corner store. Sell them at the 5 and dime. Marzipan, you gotta get on the train. Get on the wood davers train. Here goes the wood davers train. It's taking off as a new century.
And welcome back to the latest episode of Lag Free. This is Matt. Going solo this show, Matt's out. And this was a news week surprisingly dominated by Nintendo. We were treated to the announcement of the 2DS, and people may say, well, wait a minute, what's the 2DS? Is this a brand new handheld console? Yes, it is. It's a completely brand new, completely flat, semi-tablet-esque, e-reader-esque, new 3DS platform. Now, what do you mean 3DS? Well, what this does, it allows all 3D games to be played solely in 2D. Same thing with their apps and any downloadable content that you may be able to get in 3D. Well, it's only going to be allowed to be played in 2D. Now, had this been the initial concept, or they made this instead of the 3DS XL, well, I think you would have a lot of people on board right away. The 3D functionality is good. It's surprisingly better than what I've ever experienced in a movie theater or anything. However, it's not perfect, and 3D is never going to be perfect until you're interacting with holograms and those sorts of futuristic interactions. So, with that being said, you can already play every 3DS game in 2D. In fact, that's how I play all of my 3DS games, is in 2D. You just turn the slider off. So this functionality, or down in that position, semantics, I know. But you turn the 3D functionality off, put the slider down, adds a little bit more battery life to your handheld, and you get to play games pretty much as they were meant to be played. So I don't particularly like the fact that they've decided to do it now, simply because it's a simple money grab. And what do you mean it's a money grab? Well, what have I said consistently on this show? That the Pokemon franchise has legitimized nearly every new installation of the Game Boy or Nintendo's handheld since Pokemon's been around, so for nearly 20 years. It certainly helped the Game Boy Advance SP sell. It certainly extend that longevity for that console. It certainly did so with the DS. Heck, I bought a DS in order to play Pokemon, and I bought it for the second time at that juncture in its life cycle. So you can see what I mean. And now it's finally hitting the 3DS. Just in time it was going to sell. It could help sales with the console. Well, what are you doing? You are admitting defeat in the fact that you don't need a 3D. It's just such a novelty. It's such a farce. And it's not how you want your core target audience, specifically children, who, if you look at every 3D warning, children should not be playing or viewing things in 3D for long periods of time. How many hours do you think a child spends on Pokemon? Well, if you're a good parent, it's only maybe about an hour or two a day or so. But over the course of the game's life cycle, you're spending tens and hundreds of hours on the game. I've put well in over 100 hours into pretty much every Pokemon game that I've ever played. But the key is, what did I do? I went out and bought the console in order to play the next iteration of it. And I was absolutely part of the complete legitimization of the Nintendo DS. Well, what are you doing now? You're admitting defeat, you're backtracking, and you're going back to the 2D platform because it is successful. Had I not bought a 3DS XL, I certainly probably would have been in the market for the 2DS, or DS2 is probably more apropos for it. I just wonder how the functionality will be going forward, and whether the 3D functionality will be something programmers plan for, the graphic designers design for, all those sorts of things, or whether they will just take the space that the 3DS cartridge has and the power that the DS2, as it were, has. But that being said, it's a good, kid-friendly piece of hardware. That's good. It's certainly coming out at $130 in retailers for around here in the U.S., North America. So it's budget-friendly, certainly cheaper than the PS Vita or pretty much any of the other consoles. And for the selection and the library that you do get with 3DS at this point, or DS2, however you want to call it, it's certainly worth it, and it's certainly a good investment. But it's just disappointing to see them kind of take advantage of people and their newest product and their best-selling, most recognizable product in Pokemon in order to drive those sorts of sales. Had they done this years ago, I would certainly be all for it. I seriously would have never minded Nintendo backpedaling and pulling the parachute on the 3D functionality early on in order to make a better product. Right now, some of the initial product and what it looks like as far as the 2DS is concerned, it certainly lacks the hinges. I enjoyed the hinges and kind of the portability, the compactness of the DS and how that evolved, as well as the 3DS. So switching to a flat tablet style is certainly a change, and how wide it is, and for the screen, for specifically the top screen versus the smaller touch screen that is the lower one, and the button positioning, I don't know. It seems like one of the Tiger Electronic games from the late 80s, early 90s. So I don't really know how the ergonomics of it will be and how comfortable hands will be. But something that is also rather disappointing is the fact that the battery life is even worse than the 3DS XL. So, okay, yes, it's kid-friendly. They shouldn't be playing long enough to burn down the battery, but it's certainly nice to have it work when you want it to, specifically, hold the charge when you want it to, I should say. But all right, it's good for families on a budget. It's good for kids and their ocular health. So yeah, it's kind of a push. It's neither here nor there. I certainly was outspoken initially on it by calling it this generation's Game Boy Micro. I can stand by that. I'll stand by that, especially when they make the next improvement to the DS2. I'm sorry, I can't call it the 2DS because that's just insulting to, I think, to everyone that's out there that has a 3DS and was willing to adopt 3D technology for the next handheld, even though I'm sure a majority of you play in the 2D plane. But that covers pretty much the big news. Lots of Humble Bundles going up for you PC fans, so it's nice to see that some good sales are out there. I'm not specifically biting on any, simply because I don't have enough time to sit by the computer and play when I can have so much other things to get through, like Uncharted 3, which I'm really, really enjoying. Naughty Dog just knocks it out of the park. That's the best way I can put it. The characters are charming. The story's well written. The characters are compelling. it's a nice story. It's something that the Uncharted series, I think, is something like it has almost a better mystique than the Indiana Jones series. Maybe it's the modern day, maybe it's the characters, I don't know. But having that sort of adventure and that sort of fiction is really nice to see in games, and a real treat to play and experience as a gamer. Moving on to what I've been watching, I did get through Hemlock Grove. It's such a disaster, but it's so kind of out there and ludicrous and at times downright stupid. I wouldn't call it Vampire Diaries. I wouldn't call it True Blood. To me, it's more compelling than True Blood because I don't necessarily think I think it takes itself serious enough where I think right now True Blood is just so far off the rails and so far gone that nothing can bring it back to center. Hemlock Grove had a lot of little mysteries and was unfortunately disjointed. It took longer than I would like for some stories to finish and things to get through. Maybe that was just required by the time passages that needed to occur, but it was really, really kind of brutal. Maybe it's because I fell asleep at the last 5 minutes of seemingly every episode, but it's very disjointed. That's the best way to put it. It almost takes leaps of faith that you, the viewer, are expected to know. I know it's based off of a novel, and maybe the novel does a better job of it, but it was certainly compelling enough, and Netflix certainly thought so, especially with the second season coming out. The show was graphic, certainly has a lot of adult content as far as language is concerned, certainly gore as well at times. Other things, not as bad as what I've heard about some other shows, but it's certainly not as adult, I would almost say, as True Blood, but it certainly could if it wanted to, simply being on Netflix and whatnot. But yeah, don't let your kids watch it. It is more adult, mature audiences only. I enjoyed it for what it was. The characters some of the characters grew on me, and I don't know what to think. Maybe it's just the fiction that's involved and the universe that they set up that I never really got completely invested in or was explained well enough. It certainly did at times feel like a soap opera, but one thing I did learn, and hopefully she's gone from the next season, but Famke Jensen just can't act worth anything. I don't know what her deal is. I don't know if she just spent all of her cred on Jean Grey, which to me was kind of overrated, but that's just my opinion. I know I'm probably in the 1% on that one, but we'll get some feedback regarding that. But I've just really soured on her acting chops, and she's just not really there. She just can't do it. I thought the accent that she was trying to pull off was just awkward and pathetic. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens in the second season. Certainly some nice things as far as teasers or cliffhangers are concerned for a second season are out there. But yeah, don't get attached to any one character. I'll say that much, and I think that's as spoiler-free as I'll go on that. So, there you go. I did happen to get through a graphic novel as well. I got through the Invincible Iron Man arc of Extremis, which has a lot to do with, I guess, the Iron Man 3 movie that was out earlier this summer. Not really enthralled with that whole arc. I didn't really enjoy it. I don't know if it's me. I hope it's not me souring completely on Marvel and just not able to really read them anymore or take their movies for what they were or are. Yes, I did enjoy Captain America, but as I said before, I think I enjoyed half of Captain America, certainly, and yes, I did call Winter Soldier, but I am interested to see how they do that, because I thought that was a good storyline. But I'm kind of just staying neutral and out of the way of Marvel while they kind of go off and do their thing. But starting the next thing I will probably experience from Marvel will be the Captain America 2, The Winter Soldier. So, well, we'll see what happens there. But didn't really care for the Extremis story arc. I don't know. Maybe it was just the art, maybe it was the writing. I don't really know. Maybe it was the sci-fi involved. It just wasn't all that thrilled with it. So you take that for what it was. Certainly, I give it, on a